Hello. Hello. My name is Tucker Johnson, and I am your host today as we experience together NIMSY Live, where we talk about the latest and the greatest in translation, localization, internationalization, culturalization, and all that fun stuff global companies need to delight their international customers, or at least not to piss them off too much. Here on the program, we invite guests. Oh, that's the wrong program. But that's another great program we have, Multilingual Live. Here on the program, we invite guests who like to have fun and have some value to add for a global audience of globalization professionals. I'm always eager to provide a platform to those with a good story or a good data set. So let us know if there are any topics that you would like covered, and we'll make sure to reach out to those future guests for future programs. If you aren't already subscribed to NIMSY, now's your chance. If you subscribe, you'll be first to be notified when we do new live streams just like this, and you'll be up to date on all of the latest industry research. Before we get into this too much, I want to give a couple plugs here. One for multilingual news, the latest podcast for multilingual news, I should say. It's called Localization Today. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. Go on over to Localization Today. And what it is, it's daily drops of short, quick industry news that you need to know. You can also read the daily news over at multilingual.com/news. And you can also check out the Multilingual Mercantile while you're over there, mercantile.multilingual.com. We've got all sorts of multilingual and language industry merch available for you so that you can show your pride about the industry as we're going to all of the events that are starting to open back up. Now, speaking of events, if you haven't done so already, I highly encourage you to check out the events that we have available at nimsy.com. nimsy.com/event is where you're going to find all of that stuff. And we have a great, just a great summary of all of the events in the industry. And if you have an event that's not on here, you can go log that in here so you can get more visitors and more people to sign up for your event. We got some great stuff coming up here, especially as the world is starting to open back up again. Now, I think I'm done with my plugs. So moving directly on into the topic here, I'd like to introduce our guest today, who is one of these buttons here that I have. There we go. Olivier Marcheteau, who is the CEO of Acolad, and you've seen him a lot in the news recently. I've seen your face everywhere, sir, because of recent things going on. It's good to have you.
Pleased to be with you, Tucker, tonight.
All right, and before I get into this, just give me one sec, Olivier. I want to go back and introduce our most important guest today, which is not Olivier. Our most important guest, of course, is you in the chat. So if you're joining us live, if you're watching the recording, you can leave comments. That's fine. But if you're joining us live, then I welcome you to please, I ask you to please leave your comments, leave your questions in the chat. At certain points in the stream, we're going to be getting to your questions and comments over there. And if there's any challenges or, of course, with the audio or anything like that, please just let us know. So getting into today's topic and a little bit more about our main guest here, it's a known fact that translation and localization go well beyond language and that the industry has long embraced a combined and ever-growing human and technology approach. Many providers are now trying to, or they are positioning themselves as partners, full partners to globalization programs with internationalization and content management as the key new buzzwords. But when you go beyond that and become a growth enabler, which is what we're talking about today, when you become a growth enabler for your customers by turning the content into value, you are also reshaping the perception of the traditional LSP. Olivier Marcheteau is the CEO of Acolad. He joined the group in January 2020. His goal is to accompany Acolad's rapid growth by facilitating the integration of new acquisitions, accelerating technological innovation, and structuring the company's service offering and client portfolio. And if I'm watching the stream, if you guys are having challenges with the stream, leave a comment, please. Moving on, Olivier is an experienced international leader with a 15-year track record of leading companies to success and scaling up in highly competitive international and technology-driven environments. Olivier, did I get everything? Anything that I'm missing out here? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
No, I think you said too much already.
I said too much already. All right.
No, I'm originally I'm a marketeer quite a long time ago, and then I was lucky enough to jump on the digital revolution bandwagon back in the early 2000s. I spent 10 years of my life at Microsoft building an asset that has now evolved, let's call it that way, called MSN, which was the consumer internet business side of internet.
I remember that. I remember that.
Spent 10 years building successful European and global e-commerce companies, and then joined this exciting industry 2 years ago, joining a very exciting entrepreneurial adventure called originally Technicis and now Acolad, which is originally, I would say, a medium-sized French language service provider that decided to go on a build-up strategy and acquire companies first across Europe and then globally to try and make it to the big league. So my job is basically to enable that exciting growth story to continue. That's what the reality of my job is, and it's a pretty exciting one, to be honest.
Well, it looks pretty fun, and of course I was doing a little bit of light research here before I met with you today, trying to figure out what it's all about. And like I said, you've been in the news. If I go over to multilingual.com and just search for your name, you're all over the place here. And this latest headline here is it's a little old now, but Acolad CEO Olivier Marcheteau talks ubiquitous acquisition and business future. And for those of you that are listening, head on over to multilingual.com and you can read about it for yourself, or you can listen to it as a podcast here. All of our stuff over at Multilingual is available as podcasts, of course. But Olivier, that's not really what I want to talk about today, because I think that it's been talked about to death, and I'm not an M&A guy. I'm not a finance guy. I don't dig on that. I'm more of a people person. I'm more of a process person. So that second one is kind of where I want to focus today, about the process and how that's evolving over the years. But to start off, like the recent acquisition provides a great context or a great framework with which we can have a conversation. And there were, of course, synergies. There were reasons why this happened. Two different wholes coming together to become something greater than the sum of the parts, right? Tell us a little bit about that. What was the reasoning behind the acquisition? And most importantly, I should say, is what effect or what positive effects is that going to have on your clients?
Okay, maybe I'll step back for a minute, not for too long, but on what we're trying to achieve, generally speaking. I think as you mentioned, the core of our play is to try and make sure we can partner with our customers to enable them to grow faster and really turn their content into value. So historically, what we've done is we've said, one of the first things we need to do is to make sure that we can follow our customers everywhere they operate and extend our geographical footprint. Okay, so that was one of the things we've been busy doing. So we're not doing M&A because we like to sit with bankers or we like to add brand names to our portfolio. But a lot of the logic is to say, if we want to service in the right way with the right linguistic expertise and the right operational capacity, our customers, we have to make sure that we continue to scale internationally, and acquiring teams is one way to do it. It's not the only way, but it's usually a faster way. The second thing we're trying to do is to make sure that we cover with the right expertise more and more scenarios, verticals. You can call them use cases, because people usually say, okay, it's translation, but translation is very different depending on what is it exactly that you are translating and which industry you operate in. So all along, Acolad and Technicis before the name change was busy trying to make sure we strengthen our core competencies, and that's in the combination of technology and human expertise in what we call verticals. So a lot of the acquisitions in Europe were focused on making our manufacturing translation capacity even better. Some of it was related to life science. Some of the largest acquisitions we did back in 2020, which was the acquisition of Amplexor, was really aiming at making sure we could double down on life science public sector expertise. We also acquired some exciting assets in the legal and finance world. So again, trying to make sure we have the right real operational understanding and the right partner network to service customers in specific use cases and verticals. And then the third thing we're trying to bring is to continue to strengthen our portfolio of technology. Obviously, the industry keeps changing and moving fast on that front, and we're trying to make sure that we stay in the game as we scale. Knowing that our play there has probably two specific angles. One, which is we are convinced of what you said, which is the winning proposition is a combination of technology and people. Yes, technology can make things faster. It can make it probably easier. It can sometimes make it cheaper, but not always. But then you need the right customer intimacy, and you need to have the right teams on the field to partner and engage with your customer. So we are always very focused on making sure that we continue to strengthen our human capital, and we acquire companies that have the right DNA for the matchmaking to happen naturally when the teams combine. So back to Ubiquus, which was your original early questions. Before I did that long off track.
No, those guys are great.
Thing Ubiquus basically ticks those three boxes. It is a 30-year-old player with more than 15,000 customers and about 500 employees. They operated in geographies where we already operate, but we are happy to continue to scale. And obviously, the first one is France, but they're also very active in Belgium, in North America, or in Italy, where we actually already operate. And then they're bringing new geographies where we probably didn't have a complete offering and support capacity. That's very valid of Spain, where they have a great team, and we had really a minimum presence there. It's also true of Canada, where they had a stronger presence than we do, and then they have some complementary and larger activities in the UK than what we do. We tend to be very focused on the legal segment in the UK. They had more activities there. So complementary geographical footprint, which will enable us to do even more of the sort of follow the sun 24/7 approach that we want to have, especially with large enterprise customers. Today, we are present in about 25 countries. Combined with them, it will be more than 60 offices, which means we can basically service customers almost anywhere in Europe.
60? 60 offices?
Yes, across 25 countries. Yeah.
Oh, dear Lord. All right.
Which means I spend quite some of my time managing topics around offices, but that's actually a fun part as well. So first complement, I mean, addition to our position is this geographical footprint. The second one is those guys have done great work on the technology side. They actually took a very specific path, which is they have become a core tenant of the OpenNMT project. So they have developed their own NMT technology and capacity, and we think that they have a very interesting asset that they have developed that we will be able to offer our customers across the world. It doesn't mean that we are planning to shift all our machine translation effort to their technology, but it means that it will enable us to have an even larger portfolio of solution, and in some specific languages or use cases, we actually think that they rate better than the market solution that most of our competitors are and Acolad were using as well. So it's a great R&D effort that we'll be able to leverage. They have also invested some effort in automated speech recognition. They are much bigger than we were in interpreting, and we also think that there are great opportunities for some of our customers and some of our existing teams to leverage that technology. And then the last thing they bring is a very unique business line, which is a transcription business line.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, they were actually the company started on that segment. And here again, we think that that's an additional service line we'll be able to offer to a lot of our customers from a starting point where they have scaled it in specific geographies, but not in all their markets. So again, a large and successful company that is bringing more capacity and competencies to our portfolio of solutions for our customers.
So,
and right now the work is about trying to bring these 550 people and those 15,000 more customers into the Acolad footprint without losing anything along the way, because what really drives business in this industry is obviously the quality of your customer service and your customer relationship, and so you want to both move fast but do it in a way that really integrate the specificities of how you manage customers.
Yeah, I think that bears repeating as well. Is what differentiates LSPs, language services providers, right? Services. What differentiates LSPs in this industry is the service, the level of service, the people. It's a people-driven industry. And I pulled up Acolad's website here, and I was just looking around and following up on the conversation or what you were just saying is that there's different reasons for growth through mergers and acquisitions, but all of those reasons kind of come under the umbrella of we need to be able to provide better service and more services to our clients. And if I go to your website right here and I go to the solutions tab, holy moly, you've got a bunch of stuff here. You've got, of course, language, but you've also got technology, you've got content, and I want to come back to content particularly, because I talk about technology a lot, and I don't want to talk about it today. But I want to talk about content strategy, and I want to talk about digital strategy. But before we go on there, also just going over to the industries tab, you're in a lot of different verticals here: life sciences, manufacturing, legal, finance, e-commerce, public sector, telecom and media, technology, retail, and travel. These are all very different industries, and what that means from a services perspective is the way that you approach each of these industries has to be customized, has to be different. You don't treat your legal customers, you don't provide them the exact same services that you provide to your technology customers. Typically. So as LSPs grow and as they diversify out into more and more different services, more and more different solutions, what's the impact on scalability there? Because you're not just taking a standardized thing and selling it to a bunch more people. You're having to come up with more standardized things, which therefore means it's not very standardized anymore.
Great question. I think what we're trying to do is to find a balance between the very specific skills and scenarios you want to address. And you're right, legal customers usually have very specific turnaround times. They have very specific ways to operate.
Let's not even mention. I saw public sector on there too. Let's not even mention public sector stuff.
And then they're obviously very different from people who are asking for technical documentation and technical writing, and who are using different content platforms and potentially have different view of pricing and quality and all those things. So not discounting one for the other. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring what some people would call a framework, an approach, an overall strategy where we say, let's make sure we have the right way to engage with customers to really understand their needs. Then let's see how much mutualization of technology we can do. And some of that is really in the project management and internal tool systems, but it also goes to how we interact with customers. And obviously that's typically what people tend to call portal and connectivity in this industry, but like how do we make it fast and easy through technology for our customers to start a project, start a conversation with us, and then progress the project and keep track. And then we can also leverage scale to have common ways to operate in sales or in some of our interaction with vendors. Always keeping in mind that there is a certain level of customization that needs to happen for specific scenarios. So the whole challenge is about building a platform that is consistent and scalable, but that enables unique scenarios to be covered, and those unique scenarios have to be covered through the combination of having the right connectivity ability to very specific systems that are usually used in a given industry or a given vertical, combined with the unique competencies of linguists or writers that sit in a very specific universe, and that you need to connect in the right way to your customers and your teams. If I want to illustrate that one, I mean, if you go to the life science segments, you do need to make sure that you can connect to very specific life science documentation, archiving, process management tools. But then you also need to make sure that you have experts in linguistic for clinical studies, for instance, which are not just sort of like your a typical linguist, but has to really be an expert. So our objective is to get to this place where you could call it the Holy Grail, where you have your platform delivers 80% of the common scenarios across the industry, and then you do 20% specific work for the various verticals. Yeah. That's why we have about 200 people involved in technology today in the company, and that's also why we have about more than 20,000 linguistic partners and writers who can help us tune our translation and content to the right level for the various industries we work with.
And that 80-20%. So if I'm understanding correctly, what you're saying is like the key is always to standardize as much as possible, to identify like what can be standardized, what can be scaled, what can be leveraged. And the goal is to get that to be, well, the goal is to get that to be 100%, like perfect efficiency, right? But with that 80-20% split, you got like 80% that's standardized, synergistic services, and then that 20% is the customization, and that's where the real value proposition or differentiator, I would say, comes in.
Yeah, if you take a long-term view of things, you're probably right. Which is you need the 20% to really differentiate. If you take a short-term view of things, even on the 80%, you can already achieve significant differentiation, because if you have the right project management tool platform, and it's super efficient, it includes automated workflows, it gives you the right access to all the CAT tools and machine translation options in your industry. You're probably, and it has a great user experience for your production teams, you're probably already hitting pretty hard on some of your competitors. So it looks like a basic, but that 80% is not that basic. And it's the same for portal propositions. Like your customers want to connect to a central place where they can share their requests, they can track their projects. It sounds easy, but if you look at the state of the industry today, it's a lot of fragmented solutions.
It's not fragmented, it's pulverized. It is crushed. It is mortar and pestle fragmented, right?
So what we need to do is we need to get that core platform 100% right, and then we need to make sure it has a unique and sort of like best-in-class capacity to connect to about any other systems externally, because the reality is that you have a new system coming up every day. I'm kidding when I say every day, but content management platforms keep evolving. For each industry, you will have unique scenarios and solutions you want to plug in as much of an automated and easy way as possible. So that's the other part of the challenge, is make sure that your platform is super open, and also make sure that you invest to anticipate what the emerging players in each of the verticals are going to be, that your customers are going to ask you to be able to connect to. Did I make that one clear?
Yeah, no, I was exactly. I agree with everything that you just said. And thank
Good.
you. Good. I am a smart man. Because you're absolutely right. You can differentiate in the 80% and the 20%. You absolutely can. You talked about different unique scenarios that you have to cover with your client. You have to innovate. You have to do something new, perhaps, that hasn't been done before, kind of invent a new type of wheel. And that brings up a question that I always like to ask. I like to ask myself. It's kind of a philosophical question. Are new services, and no, is innovation, innovation around new services, innovation around new technology, innovation around new processes, however you want to think about innovation, is innovation driven by vendors or is it driven by the clients? Where does it come from?
I think it comes from both fundamentally. I think it probably comes from actually the right dialogue between two different views of the same issues. I'll try to illustrate that. One of our acquired business units through the Amplexor acquisition is a digital services platform that entity that really focuses on content management platforms and integration. If you want to develop the right website or the right enterprise content solution for your partner, some of it can be, in some of the cases, the vendor is going to bring the solution. It's an off-the-shelf solution. But then the reality is that if you want it to be really in line with, if you're talking about a website, if you want it to be in line with the brand DNA and sort of like all the objectives of the customer, of the client, you will have to do some customization, and the customization of that platform needs to happen through the two expert views of the people who know their business inside out and know what they want to achieve, but also the external view of the vendor that we are in that case that has a series of external benchmarks and ideas of how to leverage differently the technology. So that's one of the fastest growing entities on our side, because what has been happening over the past 24 months, because I'm an old timer, I would say over the last 24 years, is digital is becoming so prevalent, and obviously that has been accelerated by the dramatic COVID crisis we've just gone through over the past 2 years.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Companies now understand, I mean, large, small corporations now really understand that they have to go digital and create content that they distribute digitally. Now, that means that they need to find the right technology to start with, and they need to find the right partner to guide them through some of those choices. If you're doing an e-commerce website, how much of the product do you want to feature versus, and the pictures versus user ratings or comments or product descriptions? How fast and how regularly do you want to update your content? So where do you want the original content to sit, and how do you want to be able to translate it through which processes? So all those discussions have really accelerated in the past 24 months, and what we're trying to do is to make sure that we can in a way elevate a bit the discussion and cover all the chain. So we continue to do 75% of our business in translation, and that's the core of our business. So if you just want to have a quick turnaround with a great quality on a press release or manual translation, you can still turn to us. But if what you're after is really understanding how you can distribute your content faster globally, do more languages, do it probably in a cheaper
more with less.
way,
more with
exactly.
less is the anthem of buyer-side localization teams. More with less. More with less.
But when you say more with less, in fact, it's limitative, because it means what you're saying is you're going to spend less. I think what we see more and more with some of our customers is that this is not the real question. The real question is, okay, there's more and more content distributed. There are more and more channels. there's more and more immediacy where like people are used to getting content all the time, getting an answer immediately. So if you want to roll out a new product, but it takes you whatever 6 to 9 months for that product to be available in all local languages, it's basically too slow and too late. And maybe what you want to do is you want a faster, but maybe you're willing to pay more to get your new application available in more markets faster. Then the discussion becomes, how can we do that? What does it mean on both sides in terms of the systems you use, the processes you follow, how we potentially manage different types of content in a different way, because some contents are just completely basic and informational, and maybe what you want to do is royalty or limited post-editing. Some of it is actually your advertising campaigns or the campaign that support the launch of the new application I've just talked about, in which case you want a high quality, completely differentiating transcreation sort of language service. That's the level of discussion we're trying to get to with our customers, and we're actually seeing quite some success with a lot of customers who have realized that with the globalization of economies, the fact that they are selling more and more internationally and in more geography, and the amazing quantity of content that they have to produce and distribute as fast as possible, it's not just a question of cost, it's a question of how you build an efficient process that enables the fastest and best replication of that content globally to drive your business faster. That's the discussion we're trying to get to.
Yeah, and as I was poking around before, I found a recent post from you on LinkedIn. You stated, at Acolad, we believe in offering the right combination of human experience and innovative technology is the key. So I should say innovative technology is the key to standing out in the content and language industry. Ubicus will further reinforce the group's, this is talking about the Ubicus Acolad deal, will further reinforce the group's capacity to compete across verticals and geography. I know I said I didn't want to talk about technology too much. How important is it, though, for an LSP to bring their own technology to the table? I would say, as recently as 5-10 years ago, LSPs were out there differentiating via technology. They were out there building their own TMSs, business management solutions, CAT tools out there. And there has been such a proliferation of third-party technology solutions out there in the last 5-10 years. It's not like, do you want Trados or Trados anymore? We have options out there. So what is the balance? What is the role for LSP proprietary technology moving forward? Is there still a place for it, or has the market shifted so that the third-party technology provider is just a standardized, accepted, expected part of the supply chain nowadays?
Okay, we have a pretty well. We're trying to combine two things. We want to control our destiny. Mm-hmm. So we say that there are a few pieces of technology that we really need to own, because we don't want to land in a place where suddenly somebody disappears or does not listen to our needs, and we just cannot move as fast as we want. Okay, and if I have to sort of like strip it to the core of the two areas where right now we say we really need to own the experience, I would say that the what we call the portal, the gateway, wherever the interaction with the customer happens, needs to be ours in a way, because if we want to evolve the services that we offer, we don't want to be dependent on an external partner to evolve their solution. So this sort of like where the customer starts a project with us and where we really feature our offering, enable them to kickstart a project has to be owned by us. The second thing that we have concluded we should own is our TMS. The reason for that is basically that there's been so much acquisition and changes in that landscape. And again, we're talking about the 80% of like the day-to-day work that we want to drive. We think we can develop, own, and do something that really works for us. And here again, we don't want to end up with either a technology base that is too old and we cannot evolve, which is some of the cases of the current solutions that you can find on the market that are not originally cloud-based or agile enough versus the current market evolution. And the second thing is you just want to preserve yourself from I'm not going to take an example, but if you look at the recent consolidation, the question of how open some of the TMS are to connect to some of the CAT tools or machine translation providers versus having a sort of preferred partner strategy where, you know what, then it could be, it works perfectly well with Stratos, but it doesn't work with XTM or vice versa.
There's no perfect technology. Right?
And you don't control their roadmap. So if you want to move faster on a new partner, you cannot do it. So those two ones we say we really want to own. We also want to own our ability to drive connectivity with third-party platforms. So those are the three sort of like core efforts. Then we say, on CAT tools and machine translation tools, there are some fast-moving players. There's quite a lot of options in the industry. Customers sometimes have their own choice. So we typically look more at combining the market solutions. Obviously, we have our own preferred solutions where we invest to build the right relationship and ability to develop new features with some of the partners. But let's say we also want to stay agile because we don't think that the evolution is over there, and so we are happy to leverage external technology where it's actually probably moving faster than if we were driving our own internal development. Again, I put a side note on machine translation because with the acquisition of Ubiquitous, we are now saying that we can do very unique scenarios in probably a better way than what we would find on the market. It's a constant trade-off, and to be honest, it's evolving. Like if I take even interpreting, we acquired LiveWords back in when was that? I was not there yet before, but it was 2018. They had a legacy interpreting platform, mostly focused on sort of a remote simultaneous interpreting, and we've evolved that platform. We invested in it, so we're pretty confident we're going to end up leveraging a proprietary platform there as well. But you see what I mean? It's this trade-off, because how confident are you and you are going to deliver something better than what the market is investing in, and we're trying to stay agile there. What really matters as well is we say we want to be customer centricity is our core driver. So we also need to make sure that if somebody comes up and they have invested millions I'm talking about the large enterprise customers, they spend 10 years building their expertise on a market solution that they want us to use, we should be able to do that. So again, clearly we think we have to invest in R&D, and it's a focused investment on the things where we say we just cannot be completely dependent on third-party solutions. And we also believe we can do better.
Of course.
Again, the limit to that is I'll be provocative for a minute, but like, do we think we can beat Google on machine translation scenarios, basic machine translation scenarios?
Uh-oh. I'm losing Olivier.
5 years, which I don't control. So I'd rather use their technology, be able to offer it, and then build complementary things that we can leverage and offer to our customers.
And technology, I'm just watching the clock here because I'm resisting the temptation to explore machine translation a little bit further with you, but I don't want to, because I want to talk about content. I want to talk about moving shifting left in the localization workflow. I want to talk about moving up in the not in the localization workflow, moving up in the content workflow, and getting embedded to be able to add value, to be able to provide services, not just to the globalization team at these enterprise clients, but working directly with the content teams, working directly with the user experience and the customer experience teams. How do you see that playing out over the next 3 to 5 years? Do you think the industry, that's just the natural evolution where we're going to see language service? Are we going to need to rename LSPs, language services providers, to start thinking of them more as, full service content management? I don't even know. We'll have to come up with a new acronym here at NIMSY. What are your thoughts?
So first, I think there's an evolution we see with a lot of customers, which is I think that the perception of content is changing, and I think it's becoming more and more of a strategic discussion. And part of that is the quality of translation. That has been a debate in some industries for a while, but again, due to the trends I mentioned before, globalization and digitalization, I think people realize that content is a strategic asset that they need to manage. Which means what we see with some of the most advanced customers is and that's in a way the ideal scenario for us, is we see people coming and asking for support to manage better all their content chain. And so they are going to approach you, and it's not some of it is already in a way a brief of and they've done their homework and they know what they want to implement. If you want, like, they know what the system should look like, and they're looking for a partner that can implement it, okay, which is fine. We know how to do that. Some of them, it's a more exploratory discussion. They know, they feel the pain of and the limitation of how they operate, and they're going to go into a relatively open conversation and say, how would you guys think, make us think differently? And some of that again goes to, should we change our systems? Should we change the balance between internal and external sources? Should we just change our providers? But some of the most advanced players typically come to the table with those conversations. So I do think that's again, that's because of the market changes we've talked about. I see that conversation happening more and more, I would say, in the C-levels, circles of large players, which is great news. Now, the industry needs to be able to answer those questions because some of those questions, as I mentioned, are more in a way technology processes related than they are quality of translation related. So I think that, yes, I do think that the industry will move in that direction. Now, I also think that the people who will win in and preserve the customer relationships are the ones who are honest about what they can really deliver, and which goes back to this one of our previous questions, which is, do you want to say that you have a complete solution that covers the full chain, and that it's a all or nothing thing where the partner has to give you everything, rely on your technology, rely on your teams, and rely on your vendors, and then they are in a way locked in the relationship, or how flexible do you want to be in your ability to combine market solutions with internal versus external resources? We now have, I already talked about our digital services entity, which basically helps companies define and shape their content management platforms and their enterprise content solutions. Another brick of service we're trying to bring is what some other people call managed services. So we do have both in the automotive sector and in the life science sector people who have said, we don't want we want to externalize our localization teams. We think you guys have experts, and we're happy to sort of let you run it for us. Obviously, that's a different
that can work
model.
really well. Yeah.
But it's a different where people shouldn't fool themselves. It's a different company setup. It's a
Like I said,
different way of operating. So you have to have
work. Yeah.
specialized team to do that, because you cannot just improvise yourself and pretend you know how to do that. And then obviously another area where we see a lot of growth right now is everything that relates to how we support in the marketing field and everything that relates to digital communication, SEO, translation of digital campaigns. Where historically, if you look at the advertising market, I think the way agencies operate tends to be either super local or presumably global, but the reality is that you end up paying a global partner that subcontracts the work to a lot of local partner that they don't really control. So what we see here is a lot of conversations of how, as content and translation experts, we can help marketing teams do better and achieve high quality of translations, but maybe going in a way direct to people who know the language and are able to address some of the challenges versus going through a series of intermediaries that end up delegating the work, but don't help with those process challenges and tools challenges that I was talking about before. Sorry, very long answer to your question, but yes, I think this industry will move more and more to a broader footprint than just language, and content will be the core topic we deal with, and then various companies will have various answers, which is what's fun. Some will want to cover all the chain, some will continue to cover only a part of it. We believe in excellence, to be honest. There are areas we decide not to go into just because we really believe in what we talked about, which is this combination of human expertise and technology, and you want to make sure you achieve that in the various fields where you compete.
Yeah, and you gotta, because you don't get a second chance to make a good first impression. So if you try to enter a new market or a new service and you screw it up, then it's a small industry. People are going to remember that. As you were talking, I was thinking, this is quote unquote the goal is to move into more full content management, managing the whole content life cycle, of which localization is just one part of that. And I think that's a goal for a lot of LSP salespeople because, hey, money, right? Two budgets are better than one. Let's work with globalization team and the marketing team and the legal team. And I should say, I think it's also a goal of a lot of client-side globalization directors. They as well want to increase their influence up the chain. They as well want to have a seat at the table when the C-level is making strategic content decisions or strategic market entry decisions. And historically, the general norm is that localization departments are kind of the redheaded stepchild of the company, and they're just kind of, you just stay there and do what you do. We don't want you at the table. What advice, I say all that to say this, ask this, what advice would you have to client-side globalization directors who are looking to increase their influence within their own organization with the goal of, I'm not just talking about like increase their influence for political gain. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about increase their influence so that they can add more value to their company's global operations. What advice would you have for those people?
I'll answer the question, but I'll say something I really want to make sure I say before going there. It's still okay to just do translation. You see what I mean? Like one big mistake companies do sometimes is they forget what the core of their business is and what. So not all conversations and relationships have to be that strategic. You see what I mean? We have to keep We talked about the fact that we are a service company. Yeah. It's okay. Even for large customers, if you're contained to a given business unit, and salespeople have to understand that.
Yeah,
I mean, the goal
it's okay just to do translate. It's okay to be a translation shop.
It's not okay. It's actually it's a great role, it's a great industry.
We
and
need
it's
to
a
be
great
what the
service.
client
So,
wants us to be, needs us to be.
exactly.
Okay.
You get that
Caveat,
point. So
heard,
to your
accepted.
question, and I think a lot of companies lose that, and then they start cycling around their own view of what they want to achieve, but they lose contact of what the customer really wants. Now, the second thing on localization and influencing that. Remember, I've been on the other side. I've been driving relatively large international companies for a while. So I think if you want to get the right attention from your CEO, from your C-levels contacts, I think examples and sort of like ROI are the two things. ROI and benefits to the company are the two things you need to get right. And I start with examples because I think it's easier, from my experience, to say, this is what another great company in the industry is doing, and this is the benefit that they get, than just to pitch on your own, if you see what I mean. So because people, C-levels tend to be pretty competitive, and they hate to see somebody doing better than them. So I think illustrating that you're basically not the best in class in one area is probably going to help your case. The second thing I would say is but that's probably the expected answer, is find a trusted partner to open that conversation. Because and there's us, but there's other people, obviously. I think you need, because an external partner is going to bring those examples, industry best practices, and if they are an honest partner, they can also bring the right insights and credibility to the discussion, which and I conclude that question with you mentioned the role of sales there. I think there's a real important role for salespeople in this industry, because the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to sell a solution you cannot deliver. And I think
well, it depends upon your commission structure, but yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Because of what's happening today, I think there's a very high risk, reputational risk, both for LSPs and localization managers, which is if you pitch too high, if you pitch a solution you've never implemented, if you take too much risk on both sides, you're not going to get a second chance.
Right.
So it's always been the case, but because the bar is raising in terms of technology and speed of implementation, it's probably more important than ever to have those honest conversations. So our salespeople need to have this ability to, in a way, extend the conversation and move from, because it usually starts with a limited relationship. They have to extend that to a much broader discussion around that we've gone through for now the last 30 minutes or 45 minutes, around how do we manage content better together for your company. But then they also have to be amazingly down to earth and agile to make sure that they remember that the number one thing they have to maintain is the relationship and the credibility with their customer. So don't oversell.
Yeah.
And if you have to say you don't know how to do it, let's face it, because it's a better answer than putting your customer in a shitty situation and your company in a shitty situation 6 months down the road.
I absolutely agree. And there are times here at NIMSY Insights when I actually have to tell, and my colleagues have to tell our clients, we don't know, but we can introduce you to somebody that does. And it's literally our job to know things for our clients, right? So that takes a certain level of awareness and humility, I think, to say, look, I just had this conversation with someone this morning. Someone wants some recruitment. They need to find like a very specific thing. We don't really do recruitment. We can, but we don't really do recruitment. So we have to go back to them and say, look, this is high priority for you. We don't want to screw it up. So the way that we can add value to you right now is by making an introduction to somebody who can help you. So it takes a level of self-awareness and humility, I would say.
Yeah. And obviously, the broader your portfolio of solutions, the easy it is as well to say, that one I don't do.
Yeah.
because you already drive a lot of business with your customer anyway. And the last advice, but that's not.
Let's. We've got 5 minutes left.
The localization industry is a surprising industry for outsiders like myself. It's both a very closed and a very open community. It's a very closed community in the sense of like it's a bit of a small world, and you need the right introductions to get to know people. But once you're in it, I think it's actually an industry where people are happy to share, and they're happy to sort of like mix and match and discuss. So obviously industry events, podcasts, whatever, but even physical events to sort of like, now that the world is open again, our best salespeople are the people who actually know all the right people in the industry, and there's the training and the skills we can bring them because we are a large corporation, but there's all the industry knowledge that they gather on their own, and I think localization directors should actually do that, because I don't think they see each other as competitors, except if they are really very direct competitors.
And I'm sorry, but you just set me up for a perfect plug. If you are a globalization director out there and you would like to learn more about this industry, go over to nimdzi.com and check out Nimdzi Insight. Sorry, I couldn't resist. It's the salesperson inside me just screaming to get out. But Olivier, this has been, time flies when you're having fun. We're out of time. So any last burning desire, closing thoughts that we didn't get to today?
No, I think we nailed it, and actually that's one of my closing thoughts as well, which is time flies in this industry, and it's so much fun, and what we're trying to keep is the entrepreneurial attitude and the customer relationship that has made the success of what originally was a small French country to get the best of both worlds, be a global company of smaller players.
Well, thank you very much, Olivier. I'm gonna start wrapping this up, and I'll take this out here. Just hang around for 1 sec. Ladies, gentlemen, chat, we are out of time today. If you enjoyed this episode of Nimdzi Live, this whole experience, then join us next time. We don't have a next time. There's not another one on the calendar. So make sure that you are subscribed to Nimdzi Insights so that you are notified when we do have upcoming live streams. Once again, my name is Tucker Johnson. I'm host of Nimdzi Live, and it has been my pleasure to join you all today. I appreciate our guest, Olivier Marcheteau. I appreciate my colleagues here at Nimdzi Insights, because they're doing all of that hard work so that I can sit here and play around with my Stream Deck and have these fun conversations. I appreciate everybody in our industry who fills out Nimdzi surveys and schedules briefings with our analysts so that we can include you in all of our published industry research. And finally, I appreciate you guys, the audience, everybody in chat who's joining us live today. I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the disagreements. Everybody who left comments and questions, and especially criticisms. And I very much look forward to next time. With that, have a wonderful day.